So I absolutely love your outfit today, Lucy. Can you describe what you're wearing today for the viewers at home? This is a really important, informative video, guys.
So I've got these great boots on, which are about 3 sizes too big.
Me too.
I've got a nice blister on my right ankle from walking around in them for the last 2 hours.
Look, if you walk around, it's like with clowns.
Yeah,
with clown
absolutely.
shoes.
And then I've got this nice, smart black dress.
Because you turned up really smart.
I did, yeah.
And then I made you put on all this horrible outfit, get the high heels off.
So you don't really know what's happening at the moment. You don't know whether I'm dressed for construction, if I'm dressed for
a fancy
filming,
outfit,
if I'm
fancy dress party as a builder.
Yeah, it's interesting. Never a dull day.
Never a dull day. You know, we like to keep ourselves PP'd up, even if we look stupid. But right, sorry, back to business. We're here today for you guys at home to talk about kind of general market update on buy-to-let finance and maybe HMO finance, those kind of 2 products.
Yep.
We've talked on a previous video about land and development finance, bridge loan finance, and also threw in a bit of market chat about how we are there towards the end of 2021, where this video is filmed. Please watch out for that video and go and look for it on the channel. Buy-to-let lending. So what's the market doing at the moment, Lucy? How busy is it and what's lending like?
It's very busy. The buy-to-let market has had a bit of a tough time, I would say, over the last few years, just given there was a raft of tax changes which really impacted landlords. I think we've now come through that and we're adapting, which is really good.
They had to get used to limited company lending, stuff like that, haven't they?
Yeah, that's it. They had to get used to it. They had to try and understand what they needed to do yield-wise in order to make it viable. For some, just buying a sort of a vanilla standard buy-to-let just wasn't worthwhile anymore. And also the cost of then setting up a company and whatever. So I think that's settled. And I think that the constant demand for housing and the demand for rental and actually rising rents has really strengthened that market again. And we've seen some positive movements with lots of lending available. I mean, there's probably 80 plus buy-to-let lenders in the market, of which a certain number will do what we call specialist. Within specialist, it can be the bottom end of specialist to the really complex end of specialist. So your SPV limited company lending
so
is
specialist.
That's considered specialist actually, which you may not necessarily imagine it to, but it is considered specialist because if you go to a bank lender that has a buy-to-let product, often they don't do limited company lending. They don't understand it, they can't underwrite it, they just have very straightforward platforms. It all goes through their IT system and it either fits or it doesn't.
Tick or no tick.
Completely, and that works. They can achieve scale, but it's not the type of lending that most creative landlords are looking for. They need something that is a bit more flexible. So you get everything really from the easier limited company, straightforward buy-to-lets, all the way through to multi-unit blocks. You might have HMOs over 7 bedrooms, or 7 and over bedrooms, which, as you know, requires a different planning class, a different way of valuing it. So you within that specialist range, I would say there are probably only a handful of lenders who can go to the really more complex end of that in a flexible way. Some will say they do it, but actually trying to tick all the boxes still within that specialist finance product can be tricky.
And knowing where that'll fall down, and going back to the last video we did on the development and bridge loan finance, which you need to go and check out on the channel and subscribe so you see that come on. Lucy, and why we work with Lucy and her team is because they know the detail of all of those lenders and have fantastic relationships with them internally. You're actually a master broker as well, aren't you, Lucy?
We are. So we actually help a lot of other mortgage brokers and intermediaries who have a client bank, and they might be more residential mortgage focused. So it's not necessarily their area of specialism. They might not have the lender contacts, or simply maybe just not the time. If they're really busy doing residential mortgages for people, that can be very time consuming. And if they get something that's a little bit more complex, they want to talk to us because we can help them to get there much quicker, and we work with them to try and help their clients. So that's another side to what the business does. Partly we work with customers and partly we work with other mortgage brokers.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point to note. When you're upgrading your power team, and I always talk about your power team getting the right people on board to do your deals. You know, when you're starting to get into more complex buy-to-let or even straight buy-to-let, you know, you don't want the family mortgage broker or the neighbour's mortgage broker or the, you know, whoever it is that just does vanilla stuff like home lending or maybe straight buy-to-let stuff. It's very, very simple. Fill in an application form, pick the lender. There's not much that it can fall down on, you know, there's always stuff.
Yeah, that's quite sourcing system led, and a sourcing system is a tool that mortgage brokers use. They type in the criteria, your loan amount, your property value, things like that, and they hit a button and it brings up a list of lenders, and they will tend to just go for the cheapest or the
best
top three, best rate, best fees, whatever it is that the client's demands are. Whereas the type of work we do, we very rarely use a sourcing system. Some of the products that we offer, we do it mainly as a sense check, just to make sure we're not missing anything.
Sure.
But primarily, we know which lenders to go to, and we know which lenders have the appetite for certain types of business, especially around number of units, number of bedrooms, certain planning nuances and size of units, things like that.
Can you keep going with that list? That's a really interesting list. You know, the types of things where it can fall down on. It's really important to understand. You know, when you're starting out, or if you've only ever done vanilla buy-to-let. I've got a number of clients that I mentor on a one-to-one basis, which have done buy-to-let and they've built up a big portfolio, but actually they've maybe not got any experience on conversions, bigger conversions, moving into office to resi, all that sort of stuff. So having the right broker, you might have used a more simplistic broker for those kind of deals, and it would have been fine.
Yeah.
But more of that list, you know, that was an interesting list. You know, number of units could be a problem for certain lenders.
Number of units, some of them might say that multi-unit blocks they'll do up to 4 or 6 or something like that. Okay. Sometimes it's concentration in a block. So if you are financing a certain number of flats in a block, some lenders will not want to have over 25, 30, whatever their concentration limit is, percent of that block.
So you might need multiple lenders in a big block.
So you might need multiple lenders in a big block.
Okay.
Titles, so looking at freehold, leasehold, length of lease, they're always important considerations.
What about in HMOs? Are there certain things in HMOs that might fall down on lending?
The valuation is the biggest one with HMOs, and the challenge that we find is there is always an expectation that any size of HMO, customers tend to look at the value of it driven by the rental. Sure. Whereas
it's
lenders...
what we want to get the maximum GDV.
Yeah, of course.
We're always battling against the valuers to try and get that investment value, aren't we? The highest value possible.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas actually if it's 6 beds and below, there is really only 1 or 2 lenders that will consider that lending off of the investment value. So the smaller ones, lenders tend to work off of the family let vacant possession value, which sometimes doesn't cause a problem. Sometimes the differential isn't huge, but sometimes it really is. And obviously getting on to valuations is a whole different subject. So that's kind of to one side. It's a big... Next video.
I like the way at the end of all our videos we go, we've thought of the next video. So tune in if you want to know about valuations and difficulties and nuances in valuations, which is, again, where Lucy's team know all that nuance of what the valuers look at, how things might fall at valuation stage. Subscribe to this video. Right, that's the next one.
So
carry on, sorry.
It's understanding in the first place what the lender's instructions are, because it's not just a case of what the valuer is going to say.
So
it's actually what the lender has asked for and what the lender wants the valuer to say back to them. So
100%.
if they've instructed it on the basis that this is just a vacant property, you're never going to get the investment value, because why would the surveyor even talk about that? That wasn't their instruction. And I think it's making sure that you tell people when they're talking to you about it, by the way, this is how it's going to be valued. Otherwise, you get to the point the valuation comes back and everyone's really unhappy because we were all on different pages. So it's making sure you have these conversations early on.
And that's where, just to summarise this part of the conversation, that's where, you know, newbies or people who haven't got as much experience should seek help at this, because it's driven, in my view, right from the investor, right from, you know, me going for a mortgage. I'm presenting it to Lucy and her team, they're presenting it to the bank's presenting it to the valuer, and then I'm battling with the valuer to make sure he values it correctly and hasn't missed anything. But it's driven from the the presentation from the client, isn't it?
Completely.
So if you're not experienced and you don't present it right, you're not going to get that deal through that chain.
Actually, one of the things that I think falls down most often is when the client has a really strong opinion of what they think they want and they need. So there are obviously certain requirements which we have to consider because they are your requirements, but sometimes customers think and they have preconceived ideas of how it needs to be done. And as a broker, we are not order takers, because those type of brokers, that is often where you fall down. If it's reasonable and it all makes sense, then of course you do exactly what the customer asks you for. But sometimes you say, right, this is what I want. And we will always say, this is why you need to do it that way, or that doesn't quite work, or that ambition is unrealistic, because otherwise you're just stringing
honest,
people along.
You know, you and your firm are honest. If someone comes with a deal and it doesn't work, you're not going to waste their time trying to get it through, basically. You'll turn that client down. So
you will, yeah. A quick no
I know
is
where I
always
stand
preferred.
with you. I know where I stand with you, and that helps me. Your experience helps me decide on what deals to buy and what not to buy often.
And it's not always what you want to hear. Sometimes you're sort of
course.
you know, and it's, you'll always challenge me and you'll always try and make me look at it from different ways, just in case actually there is an angle which I'm missing and that I need to explore further. And those conversations are good. And obviously your experience is different. If you've got a customer that's got no experience, the challenge isn't always as constructive because they haven't learnt it yet. And that's the point. They just need to get their experience up so you can have that debate. But it's really important that we are very clear about what we think needs to be done, and then we work it back into the customer's requirements from there. Because definitely. if you just sort of say, oh, okay, that's what you want, we'll go and try and do that then, you could just be leading them up the garden path. Yeah. Right.
Okay, before we do a quick summary of the buy-to-let market at the moment, I want you to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon, because we're going to talk about valuations in a lot more detail in another video. We've also just been talking about land and development finance, the current market around that, and some of the nuances around that. That's going to be another video on the channel, so keep an eye out for those. So in summary, buy-to-let market, lots of activity, 80 plus lenders, did you say, in the market at the moment?
Yeah, I'd say so, something
lots
like that.
Lenders.
Yeah, of which only a certain percentage, probably much less than 50%, will do specialist.
But lots of lending capability. The market's good for investing, ultimately, is the message.
Yeah, absolutely. Loan to values are typically 75%. There are 80% products out there, albeit they're not always...
Up, isn't it? 'Cause it was kind of 70 last year.
Yeah. I mean, it scaled back a little bit. The pandemic made lenders across the spectrum of finance a bit more cautious. Yeah. But 75% for buy-to-let has always been there, but I think some lenders brought their loan to values down as they were concerned about the outcome of the pandemic. But we have very much bounced back to pre-pandemic risk appetite and criteria now.
I'm very pleased to hear that. Thank you, Lucy. I appreciate your time today on buy-to-let lending. That's been Lucy Barrett from Vantage Finance. If you'd like help with any of your buy-to-let, HMO, land and development, bridge finance, any of the above and more, please look her up on the link below and we'll get you guys in touch with her or a member of her team to get you a quote for your deals. I'm Nicholas Wallwork, CEO of Redbrick and globally published author of Investing in International Real Estate for Dummies. We've got some exciting courses coming out soon, so please watch out for those in the links that will be placed below once those are launched. Also mentor people on a one-to-one basis. And if you've got a lot of capital and you want to get into some bigger deals and you'd like to partner with us on a JV basis, we're also interested in hearing from you on that as well. So hope you enjoyed the video. Look out for the other finance videos on the channel coming very soon, and we will see you again soon. Make sure you comment and subscribe. Take care. Bye-bye.